Well, hi there, and welcome along to Jump to It, brought to you by IrishRacing.com. Now, coming up on today's show, we're pretty much going to be discussing all things Newmarket. Lots of action to get stuck into with the Cesarovic and the Dewhurst taking centre stage. As ever, to discuss all things horse racing here on Jump to It, I'd like to bring in Stephen Harris and Vincent Finegan. Good morning/afternoon, gents. Hope we're all well. Stephen, I'll come to you first. We'll look back in order to go forward with a quick recap on the Arc last weekend. What was a very wet, almost Foss-Lass-like conditions, wasn't it, in Paris Longchamp? But a wonderful story with Sir Mark Prescott, Luke Morris and Alpinista getting the job done in what I thought was a brilliant race.
Yeah, I mean, and in some style, Ed, as well. I mean, I must admit, didn't she get to an incredibly short price? I think she's returned 7-2. She was under 5-1 on the betting exchanges. I mean, financially, it was a very poor result for me. I couldn't have dreamt all the other one at the prices. I thought it was a very wide open race, but she was by far the best performer on the day. I think she's valued for a lot more. She travelled. I mean, what stopped the race sort of 3 out. As you say, Foss-Lass did spring to mind. There was one on the bridle, absolutely cruising, and then the rest of them were sort of struggling and laboured well off the pace. And although she only scrambled home in the end, she was probably in front soon enough. And you remember previous arcs, often the complexion changes late out wide. It's often not the place to be up against that far rail, but she kept pulling out more and did enough. I mean, what a fantastic advert for Sir Mark Prescott, age 73, to win his first arc. And she's been incredible. I mean, she never ends up winning by sort of 10 lengths, does she? She's just she sort of does enough in front, but the way she travelled in that ground was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it sure was. And Vince, I'd like to bring you in here. Obviously, we had Vedani finish runner-up. Torquato Tasso, defending champion, finished third and now goes off to retirement on the back of that. I suppose the disappointment in the race in many respects would have been Luxembourg for Aidan O'Brien. Never really landed a blow. And we're hearing stories of an injury and ground excuses afterwards. I mean, what did you make of the run?
I think possibly that the Irish Champion Stakes took too much out of the horse. That's what I think myself. Like the horse had a setback after running in the English Guineas and didn't come back till a month before the Irish Champion Stakes, where it was seemingly only half fit and still won a Group 3 in the Curragh. Then goes the Irish Champion Stakes, and they'd done a lot of work by all accounts to get the horse fully fit for the Irish Champion Stakes. That was their longer term plan. And they won that, beat Vedani, and which got a poor ride that day from Sumion. But anyway, that's another story. But basically, I think maybe that amount of work they put into that horse in a short space of time probably took its toll. I know we're talking about a muscle injury again here, which is what the setback was earlier in the season. Perhaps it's the same muscle, I'm not quite sure. But a little bit disappointing, but I thought the race itself was very good. The one thing that you'd have to take out of it is the draw is such an important factor in that arc. Like Torquato Tasso, the horse that won the race last year, was very unfortunate with the draw. With a better draw, might have won. Was closing all the way to the line, is only beaten bits and pieces in the finish. I think the winner wins half a length, and it's a further neck behind Vedani. So not beaten too far with Frankie on it as well. That for me was the main takeout for me from the race, was the fact that it's a pity the draw is such a significant factor in a race like that worth 5 million.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I suppose, how else do you do it? I know what you're saying, but yeah, especially on that ground. I remember was it Orfev Solomir as well? I think there was a bit of that draw and bad ground coming into them when the whole of Japan stopped, thinking Orfev had got the race won from a wide draw and came unstuck by Philly, who may have never won another race again after. It's funny how it goes, doesn't it, in Longchamp? But no, as you say, be interested in what they do with Luxembourg, whether he stays in training, whether he can come back as a 4-year-old. We feel there's unfinished business there, I think, is the bottom line with Aidan O'Brien's representative. Anyway, I promise we're going to get stuck into Newmarket, so let's have a look at our races of the week. Well, we've got some really, really good action. I think that is not over-egging it in regards to the headquarters of flat racing on Saturday. And Stephen, we're going to kick off with the 150, the Group 3, the Zetland Stakes here over the 10 furlongs. Flying Honours likely to be popular in the market here for Godolphin, officially rated 108. On official ratings, has quite a bit in hand. Do you see any chinks in the armour of that See the Stars colt?
Yes, I think I do, Ed. I think he's a very
Right.
short price. I mean, okay, everyone's going to say it was a small field when he got beat at Newmarket. He was long odds on the other day. Um, he's under pressure a long way out. I thought it was a very laboured and disappointing run. I know you can say, well, it's muddling, they went no pace, but he was miles below form. And I don't know, he had a very hard race. I prefer freshness at this stage of the season. Horses who sometimes these races, back end races on the flat, the ground can change quickly. The form from the last few months isn't that relevant. And sometimes these ratings, I think you can be in trouble by taking them too literally. I'd certainly be looking to play against the short price favourite. There's 9 runners. The race has got quite a nice shape for punters. And I thought the Blancheland of Jane Chapel-Hyams was the one to side with. Now, this one only had his first race in the middle of August. So we're now at the start of October, really. So he's come a long way in a short space of time. He started off green as grass in a really strong Newbury maiden. Jane Chapel-Hyam wouldn't be known for first-time out winners, and Blancheland was ridden accordingly there. Much improved for the injection of cash at Ascot, a very unlucky loser under Kevin Stott. His run was switched a couple of times and he flew home. And he then went to Newcastle over a mile and landed the odds in a moderate race. Obviously, this is a huge jump up to Group 3 company, but the one thing with Blancheland is he'll definitely stay a mile too, and that's not something that's guaranteed about all these others. I think he really is crying out for this kind of trip. Adam Kirby's in the saddle. I think everything's in place for a big run. He's 10-1. He's one of those horses said he's got at least £10 to find on form, but I think over this kind of trip, he could come into his own. And as I say, he's only had 3 career runs. He's fresh, whereas some of these have had some hard races throughout the summer.
Yeah, interesting stuff, really. Yeah, flying honours, I suppose, by default, given the connections and the season, well, the last 5 seasons they've been having, it's taken up a huge chunk of the market here. I thought one of interest, really, was that Ryan Moore was booked for Sean Woods on Band of Steel. The Golden Horn colt goes up to 10 furlongs for the first time. I just thought, again, as you say, on official ratings, we'll be getting £23 from the market leader. But interesting that Ryan Moore has been booked on to what is perceived as an outsider in the field there. So generally, we're taking on the favourite in the Zetland Stakes. On to the Autumn Stakes, appropriately named, with the amount of leaves sweeping across my driveway at the moment. Now, this is a little cracker, I think. 6 due to go to post for this 1 mile Group 3. Silver Knot, Epictetus, Holloway Boy, all fairly close to each other at the top of the market here, Steve. And then you've got Dancing Magic, Exoplanet, Killy Beggs Warrior available at bigger prices. How do you kind of sum this race up?
Well, this has got a very similar profile to the previous race, Ed, in that we've got a Charlie Appleby chained favourite who comes here on the back of a disappointing run in a small field. The top one, Silver Knot, finished last of 3 behind Chaldine. Now, I do think Chaldine is extremely useful, and perhaps there was no disgrace in that. But again, Silver Knot had quite a hard race not that long ago, and now comes into this race, and you do sense it is a little bit of an afterthought. Obviously, Charlie Appleby remains in reasonable form. Perhaps they're not quite in the same red-hot form they were a month ago. I mean, he was nudging sort of 40% at one stage. Perhaps we're now getting to the back end. I thought Silver Knot was opposed, but I did think Silver Knot might be shorter. I see it sort of 5-2 now. It has drifted out from when they went up earlier in the week, but I think I would lean against Silver Knot. And I like Holloway Boy here. And I suspect Holloway Boy, who's around 4-1 at the moment, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he didn't start favourite. Now, of course, comes from a yard, Carl Burke, absolutely flying. They've got some fantastic 2-year-olds this year. They had a winner earlier in the week called Liberty Lane, who was smashed off the boards and absolutely sluiced up in bad ground. That one is supposed to be their best 2-year-old, but apparently there's 3 or 4 others waiting to run this autumn that are up there as well. And Holloway Boy, of course, Ed, remember, was the one who sprang that 50-1 shock in the Chesham first time out at Royal Ascot. I think
debut.
Probably about the second. Yeah, probably the second horse ever to win on debut at Royal Ascot in the last 200 years or so. But there was no fluke about that. He tanked through the race and won readily. Now, he's been well back twice since and they've left it. He does look a big shell of a horse. He's very scopy. I think he'll be a better 3-year-old, but he lost no case at all in defeat last time behind Nostrum, who's probably top class. Just a little bit one pace. And I think a mile This step up to the mile is the key. I think he's a galloper rather than a quickener, and I think he'll be seen to maximum effect at a mile. The yard absolutely flying, Carlbert, which is another plus at this stage of the season.
Yeah, I was to say, Holloway Boy does look like your old-fashioned 3 mile chaser when you see him in the paddock compared to some of the others. A real big 2-year-old. I was fascinated here. Well, I do like Epictetus for Frankie Dettori and the Gosden team. I thought it was just a really taking win on debut in a Newmarket maiden over the 7 furlongs back in July. Been given a little bit of time off to freshen up since up to mile here. I think it looks a really exciting type. But as you say, a lot of eyes will be on Holloway Boy, Stephen, with a view to whether he can frank the form of Nostrum, which is the horse which leads the market in the next race we're going to cover here at the 3 o'clock. It, of course, is the Dewhurst Group 1 action over the 7 here, and Nostrum likely to be pretty popular, I think. Unbeaten record, he brings to the table. Richard Kingscote, Derby winning jockey in the saddle for Sir Michael Stowder. Do you think he can make it a hat-trick here, Stephen?
Well, I think he's going to be the one to beat, but this is prices with this race for me. I mean, Nostrum was very impressive last time out, as we've touched on Holloway Boy. I think the form's good. There's more to come. He looks potentially top class, but he is around 6-4, which does look quite a short price. I'm going to stick with Chaldine, who's done betting expert followers 3, just to get a minor plug in there, 3 turns in this summer for Andrew Balding. He won the Acomb in real style. Things went wrong there. He was ridden overly aggressively and had to do things about 3 times and kept doing them, kept finding, strong at the finish. Then last time out, making all the running, very, very strong again at the finish. He's a typical Andrew Balding, thriving on racing, improving run to run. Dettori's up again. I'm expecting a positive ride. He stays this trip really well, and I think he'll take a good one to get past Chaldine. He's 4-1. Nostrum, who's obviously a horse of immense potential, could be a class above. But he is 6-4, so at the prices, I thought Chaldine was a pretty good bet.
Well, you're with Chaldine, I'm with Nostrum. We're split on the Judenmont runners. Vince, I'd like to bring you in here, specifically with Aesop's Fables, this no-name never colt for Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien. Now, totally flopped last time out when set off 8-13, it has to be said. Connections have said testing ground there was to blame. We haven't mentioned the weather, which is something when I usually do on this show when I go into Michael Fish mode. I mean, we are officially good at Newmarket with the chance of up to 2 millimetres of rain forecast for Saturday. So we're looking at much quicker ground. Will that be enough in regards to Aesop's Fables and landing a blow here, in your view, Vincent?
Yeah, I don't think so, Ed, to be honest with you. And look, We know Aidan O'Brien. He's a master. He's won this race 5 times in the last 9 years. I think he's actually won it 7 times in all. The record is 8. So he'll match that if he wins this year. But I'm not quite sure why he runs this horse here. Like he's had an exceptional year with his 2-year-olds. He's obviously got unbelievable ammunition in Ballydoyle. But this, for me, this horse, it definitely flopped the last day. There's no question about it. They're talking about the ground being the case. It was yielding. It wasn't like, which is what, UK good to soft. Not that bad, the ground now, in fairness, the last day. So I'm not quite sure that I'd buy that. I think the bigger issue is probably potentially the trip. That Aidan has said in the past, when this horse won the Futurity in Ireland, and he said that day that he said, the trip was my worry. He said, this horse is built like a sprinter. That being the case, I don't think this horse necessarily won 7 furlongs here. He wasn't sure it would get 7 furlongs the day it won. It did win. So then they stepped it up to a higher class the last day when it was beaten by Al Rifa, but it never really got it put in a blow there, to be honest with you. It was well stuffed in it, beaten 3 lengths. Could be the ground, but I think possibly the trip is a combination too, and these are very high class horses in opposition. I'd be surprised if Aidan O'Brien wins this. I think it's between the 2 that Stephen mentioned. Basically, I think it's Nostrum and Chaldine. We're going to see horses run earlier on the day that have linked form here. You've got that Silver Knot, which was behind Chaldine, and then you've got Holloway Boy, which was behind Nostrum. I'd be waiting to see how they perform. If you saw some fantastic performance from Holloway Boy earlier, you'd definitely be heading in the direction of Nostrum. If that's not the case, I'd be inclined to agree with Stephen with Chaldine. I don't think the Irish horse is a contender myself.
Yeah, fascinating. Split views on the panel here, but nonetheless, I just hope they all make it to post. Those 7 make it to post for the Dewhurst, because it's a brilliant race. Obviously, we would have had Sakir in here as well, wouldn't we? The runaway Mill Reef runner. He scoped dirty according to Roger Varian on Thursday. He's going to be put away for the season, and they'll bring him back next season with a view to some big races. So, yeah, don't forget about Sakir as well, of course, who's definitely in the mix with classic potential going forward to 2023. Right, on to the most straightforward assignment. The Cesarovic. Vincent, you've been very patient on this show. We'll let you kind of unpick this one. We've got one non-runner at the time of recording. I believe Rock Eagle is not going to line up. So we're due with, 22 heading to post for this 2-mile, 2-furlong assignment. Where do we start then, Vincent? I suppose we've got to start with a horse with no name in terms of the market anyway. Racked up 4 on the bounce. Ryan Moore booked to ride for Nicky Henderson, and it's proving very popular in the market.
Yeah, you wouldn't put anyone off that, considering the stable won the race last year with Buzz as well. For me, I think the Irish are the place to really start here, because we've got a great record in it. Willie Mullins particularly has a very good record in this race. He runs 3. Not sure which is the main one of his 3. So what we've got Baby Zeus, which has disappointed more than once, and I think the trip is a big question mark there for Baby Zeus. I wouldn't have that on my mind anyway. A very interesting horse is Scaramanga, which is an ex-Paul Nicholls first run for Willie Mullins. He's got Jason Watson booked on that. This is a very interesting contender. We know Willie Mullins can get them ready first time out. That shouldn't be an issue. We also know in the past he's improved a few horses that have come out of Nicholls, which Paul Nicholls wouldn't be too pleased about. This could be the same here. I definitely wouldn't rule that one out. And then he's got one down towards the bottom, which is most interesting, called Gibraltar. Ex-Michael Bell horse. It's had 7 runs for Willie Mullins. It's won 3 of them, including the last twice. And very interesting jockey booking here. He's gone for Safia Osborne, claiming £3 off it. It was a surprise to me that he would have picked Safia Osborne, but then again, I wouldn't be totally au fait with how she's been doing in England. I know she's been riding a lot of winners, but she must be very capable if Willie Mullins is sticking around one of his contenders here. I wouldn't be surprised to see that to be a little bit of a springer in the market. It certainly definitely stays the trip, which is a key. It's got a featherweight, and obviously with Safia claiming 3 more off that weight, I think that's a definite contender. The other one here that we have to talk about is Run for Oscar. Charles Burns, obviously Charles Burns, handicap specialist. And I'd say the bookies have already been running for cover with this horse, having been around a 4-1 shot. David Egan booked to ride. I'm not sure this has been the plan. I think that the day he won in August in Haydock was the plan. Really well back that day, won well. It's gone up £9. Charles and handicaps, he knows when he has pounds in hand, which is why they had the money on, I would have thought, in Haydock. The only thing I would say in its favour is it definitely wants good ground. This horse, anytime they've had a few quid in it, it's always been on good ground. And it's a contender. I don't think it's a certainty, which is what you normally want one of these Charles ones, that they've stones in hand. I don't think this horse has stones in hand. For me, if I had to have a bet in it, I'd be going each way Gibraltar down towards the bottom. I know you're going to get a run with one of Willie Mullins's, and it looks like one that will definitely stay. Just the question is it good enough? The other Irish one we have in here up near the top is Favoured Moon for Bill Durkin. This is an ex-William Haggis horse. Decent level of form in the UK, but it's been hurdling in Ireland. Won a maiden hurdle the last day. It's had a few goes over hurdles as well before it did win the last day. That definitely wants softer ground. So that's a no for me. It has to have soft ground to be at its best. So that would be a no.
Well, fascinating. Yeah, so there's lots of chances in here. Very strong. Interesting looking at that. That's in the older top of the hill syndicate colours, isn't it? Solwit, who won the Stayers Hurdle a few years ago. Remember those? And was it a very calm? Might have been Carberry ride on that occasion, or maybe I've got that wrong. But yeah, remember those colours vividly from a decade or so ago on the biggest stage. Yeah, fascinating contest here. I was going to throw in at a big price Withhold for the Charlton team and David Probert. Won this in 2017. Possible the wheels have totally come off this 9-year-old. However, has plummeted down the weights as a result, and the visor goes on for the first time. So I thought around 40-1. If that individual could snake it into the places, I'd be happy. I'm sure Stephen's going to flag up the place terms in a minute. There'll be some bookmakers tripping over themselves to give away that 7th place, which could be all important. Stephen, yourself, do you think this rests with Ireland, with England, with Nicky Henderson, with a total roughie? Where are we going here?
Well, the first thing said, isn't it? 23 runners. Is it not the lowest? Vincent will remember this. It's not the lowest Cesarovic field for about 100 years, Vincent.
Yes.
I don't
so
know
you're probably
why.
Right. I don't know.
But they
Well,
haven't got the entries.
Yeah. You'd wonder, did the Irish one take something away from this? Because we had the Irish Cesaro, which was worth
Yeah.
80,000 last year and was up to 600,000 this year. And I know last year in it, most of the runners were rated 90 or below in the Irish Cesaro, which this year, I think the lowest one to get in was a 91 rating. So a lot of the higher class Irish horses all ran in that a few weeks ago. Waterville was the one that won it, which lasted first with Wayne Lorden. And that was entered here and would have been the likely favourite if it had run, but didn't. And again, Willie Mullins had some of his better horses in the Irish race, which was worth a lot more money, 3 times the value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think it's got a good shape for punters because, all right, it's 23 runner handicaps. You're not normally looking to play in those, but because it's a Saturday, because it's the big betting race of the day, there will be at least 6 places around. And to me, there's 5 or 6 who are very, very hard to fancy, who won't stay, who are all sort of 3 figures on the exchanges. So you can probably get it down to sort of a shortlist maybe of 12. And if you're getting 6 places, you're entitled to probably have 5 or 6 bets. And I thought the one who's overpriced at sort of 18-20 is Alan King's mare, Inchicore, who I feared, Ed, you were going to tip because I know you absolutely love an Alan King on the flat. And she's a really tough, reliable mare. She's won 3 times. If you look at the betting on the race at the moment, a horse with no name's around about 9-2 favourite. Well, with me, Inchicore on form earlier in the season has got a massive weight pull for 4 lengths. And I think the longer trip will suit Inchicore. She's only ever run over 2 miles once, and that was behind a horse with no name. She's basically run a mile 6 most of her career. She ran an absolute screamer at Haydock in the old Newton Cup earlier in the season when she never landed a blow and finished like a train. She was very well back last time at Doncaster, but I thought Holly Doyle went to sleep a bit and she was well out of her ground and again ran on strongly. She's absolutely crying out. It's the first time she's ever been beyond 2 miles. She's 20-1. Kingscote is booked for the first time, which I think is a brilliant jockey booking. I mean, if a horse with no name's 9-2, Inchicore can't be 20. I mean, you could make a case Inchicore should be ahead of a horse with no name. A horse with no name is probably priced up more. The fact Moore's booked for Henderson, there's a string of 1s against his name, but he's not been the easiest to train. He is quite a fragile sort. He wouldn't be absolutely guaranteed to stay 2 mile 2 either. So, no, I thought Inchicore was quite an interesting betting proposition. Extra places, maybe you'd have to take 16-1 each way with 6 places, but I thought that was a really good bet.
Yeah, interesting you say Inchicore and Alan King. Alan King did win this back in 2015 with Grametti as a 50-1 poke. And I was just looking through the prices of some of the winners in recent times here. We had Aidenburg Prosper at 66s, Never Could Tell 25s. I say Grametti was 50s. Stratham for Willie Mullins, probably the 3rd string that year, won it 25-1. There's Caracciolo, the 11-year-old for Nicky Henderson in 2009, was 50-1. So there's been some absolute turn-ups in this race, as you would probably expect. But as you say, a lot of the National Hunt Yards traditionally, I've called them National Hunt Yards, a lot of them are dual purpose now, but the yards that would be known as National Hunt Yards do pretty well in this race. So yeah, it's a fascinating lineup, it has to be said. Now, I mentioned National Hunt, it'd be remiss of me not to gloss over the fact we've got Chepstow back, we've got Cheltenham in a fortnight, we've got Foss Lash and the Welsh Champion Hurdle on Sunday as well. So it's all really getting going in that side of things. And incidentally, we were the camera crew from irishracing.com. We were down at Ben Pauling's yard for a stable tour, which will be coming out soon, which he gave a very glowing reference to Severance, who runs in the Welsh Champion Hurdle at Foss Lass on Sunday. So look out for that one from Ben Pauling. Thinks that horse will go well with Keelan Woods booked. Right, that pretty much wraps up our preview of the weekend. We're going to nail your colours to the mast now, gentlemen. So now it's time for our tips of the week. Right, no messing around. Let's get the team off the fence. Vincent, you can kick off here. You go Newmarket, you go in Foss Lass. Where are you going for your best bets this weekend?
Well, we've got National Hunt racing coming back again over here this weekend. So we've no racing Sunday. We've 2 meetings Saturday, and Fairyhouse have their first proper National Hunt meeting of the season. And I fancy a couple here. My nap, I'm going for Hurricane Darwin. This is interesting. This is a horse. It's a 2 mile 7 handicap chase. This horse hasn't run over in a conventional handicap chase for over 3 years. It used to be trained or owned by Barry Connell, and it was a decent horse rated in the mid 130s over fences. It's since gone, and it has been running in these cross-country races. And it actually won at the Punchestown Festival at the end of the season there, and won a cross-country race there, has since won over hurdles in Listowel only a couple of weeks ago. And it comes here with a rating of 105, so it's way down from what it was at its peak. It's a 12-year-old now, but I think Hurricane Darwin coming here on a hat-trick has a big chance off this weight in an opportunity handicap chase. Good rider booked as well. Then the second one I was going for a bit of value is Diana. This is trained by Lorna Fowler. Has never been out of the first four in its life. It's only had a few starts, admittedly. But what was interesting here is it ran in Tramore back in August at the festival in Tramore, and that was a day when Emmett Mullins went for a bit of a touch on a horse called So Scottish. I think it was coupled with other horses in multiple bets, and this beat So Scottish. So Scottish has gone on to win twice since, so it's very good form, I would have thought. And then it went to Down Royal the last day. It met a bit of a tartar there, a horse called One Cool Poet, who's more than capable on its day, and One Cool Poet sluiced in that day, wins 6 lengths, but Diana still finished second. Diana, definite chance here, and should be an each way price, so it's definitely worth a little bit of a bet. And then for my long shot, I'm going for a little bit of a mad one, perhaps, this is the Pollardstown Handicap. Friends of the Curragh, they're the people who sponsored the Irish Cesarewitch for 600,000. It turned out a lot of the trainers weren't happy that they didn't get their normal Cesarewitch's horses into the race because it was a higher class of horse, was attracted with the extra prize money. So they put on this extra race. It's worth 60 grand. It's for all the horses that didn't basically get into the Irish Cesarewitch. And Cask Mate is one I'm going to take a chance on. It's going to be a biggish price, I think, because it's had a couple of poor runs recently over 1.5 miles, but it did finish a close fifth to Echoes in Rain in the Galway amateur race at the festival, which was a very good run. You had Lots of Joy was also in that. They finished, Echoes in Rain and Lots of Joy finished second and third in the Irish Cesarewitch. It's good, solid form. It has run poorly twice since, but it has Colin Keane booked to ride, which is interesting in itself. He's won on the horse before, so I'd be thinking Cass make maybe 20-1 each way. Definitely worth a little poke.
Wonderful. We got a plethora of selections there from Vincent, focusing on the Irish action. Over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm starting at Newmarket in the 3 o'clock with my betting expert Nat, which is Chaldine, who's done us a few favours already this summer. A straightforward ride, hopefully from the front, fend them all off. I think he's much better value than the short price Nostrum, although I do respect that one's claims. The value angle was Blancheland, who's a double figure price in the 150 at Newbury. Jane Chapel-Harden's had a fantastic summer, and this one impressed me on the all-weather last time out. I think he'll definitely stay a mile or two. In the Peter Harris colours, Ed used to have lots of horses, now got 1 or 2, but a very interesting horse, Blancheland. And the longer shot in the 225 at Newmarket, Holloway Boy, I think it's around 4-1. Hopefully might get a bit bigger than that. I think will be well suited by a step up to a mile, perhaps a more positive ride. I think he's very much a galloper rather than a quickener, and Carl Burke in fantastic form.
I don't know. Can we let you have that as a long shot? 4-1. Stuart's inquiry on that one, but in fairness, you could put Blancheland in the long shot category, could you? Either way, it's 3 of the best from Stephen Harris on the weekend, and all 3, fascinating contenders there. Yeah, I'm a kind of similar kind of vein. I'm looking at Newmarket to kick things off, really. So I'm with Nostrum. I just think he's the class actor. I get Stephen's point over price sensitivity, but very rarely does Sir Michael Stout kind of go through the gears with a 2-year-old, and not all that often anyway. And he seems really excited about this individual. I think Nostrum will take a lot of beating. Titus ran an absolute storm on debut when mopping up at Newmarket. I think there's a lot more to come in the autumn stakes from that one. He's my value selection. Then we're going proper Hail Mary, 40-1, but check your each way terms with Withhold. Won the race in 2017. Disappointed when midfielding it last year, but it's plummeted down the weights. I don't think is a totally forlorn hope from finishing in the top 6 at a massive price. So Withhold will do for me in that one. All right then, gentlemen, before we go, Stephen, come to you first. I suppose we're past the point of lighting the barbecue, aren't we? Where are we now for the weekend with Stephen Harris in the household?
Well, I'm looking forward to watching Chepstow and Fosslas over the weekend. They're desperate for rain. We're just looking at the field sizes on Friday at Chepstow. They're very small, and the ground's still on the faster side of good. I know there is rain forecast, but all of these trainers are absolutely desperate for rain. I know Dan Skelton, for example, a lot of his horses are a bit behind because they've not been able to really get much work into them. All these big top yards need rain, or else we're going to see some small fields for the next week or two. But no, it feels like a turning point. We've got Ascot to go, haven't we, Ed? And then we're on full jumping mode for the winter ahead, which is it's an exciting time of year.
It is, yeah. As I said, 2 weeks today, Champs meetings. Only 3 weeks like the Charlie Hall chase, believe it or not. I mean, unbelievable. You'll have your Halloween mask on, no doubt, for that show, Stephen, to scare away more viewers than usual. But yeah, as you say, it's pretty quick ground everywhere. Henry Daly's actually referenced it, hasn't he? This week, saying the ground at his gallops is like a runway, or like the A49, I think was the official quote. He said he's just so many horses they like to get out on grass and school and whatnot have not been able to do. Says look for those yards which have got their horses further forward. As you say, there's a few got their string on the back burner, and we might not be seeing some of their string or their big guns in inverted commas for a month or so. Vincent, quiet one with you. Are you off? Last time I was speaking to you, you were heading off to restaurants and all sorts, and it was all getting very stressful trying to get things booked up. I mean, it's all calm in the Vincent household.
All calm now. We've got our younger daughter's back in college up in Dublin, so that's one thing. So we've a nice quiet house here. It's just myself and my wife, but we're heading off to Spain in a couple of weeks. So in the meantime, I really need to cut the grass. That's going to be a big task this weekend. Although you talk about quick ground, we've had rain here almost constantly for the last couple of weeks in Kildare, where I'm living, and we haven't got a chance to cut this grass. It's going to be torture doing it. There's nothing worse than cutting wet grass. That has to be one of my pet hates, I'd have to say.
Yeah, look out for those adders. Look out for those adders, Vincent. Yeah,
no snakes in Ireland. We'd St. Patrick. He cleared all them out many, many moons ago, so we've no issues with those. Mushrooms I do have growing in the garden now, I see this morning, so it definitely needs a cut.
Brilliant. Well, enjoy cutting the grass. Stephen, enjoy watching the jumps action. And I hope you've enjoyed watching this latest episode of Jump to It here on irishracing.com. Of course, don't forget to check out all Stephen Harris's tips on Betting Expert and all the latest news, views and features on irishracing.com and all social media platforms, including Twitter and YouTube. Many thanks for watching once again. We'll do it all again next week. Bye for now.